starting off, there is that Gragas ban
First
with
time.
H2K.
First time that Gragas is being banned against loulex. He's played so far 3 champions, all split long. Rek'Sai, Gragas, and Evelynn.
And that was just once.
Yeah, he's only played Evelynn once. Rek'Sai 6 times and Gragas 6 times. And Rek'Sai, sorry, is the only jungler that's been banned against him. Now ROCCAT is changing it up a little bit, potentially setting up a first pick Rek'Sai for themselves and try and target towards loulex, who a lot of people looking back at the game yesterday was Fnatic. They're saying he was out of position very often. He was the guy who got caught out first, which then pulled in the rest of his team. And they also ended up dying, and that was one of the reasons they couldn't close it out. So a lot of people are looking at him, and now ROCCAT as well, doing exactly the same. Yeah,
I think if there is a weakness, that's one place to hit it. Will they go ahead and first pick the Rek'Sai? We'll have to find out as the bans are still flying through. The Fizz banned away. This is, of course, more targeted at Ryu, who's had a number of games on that. The Azir and the Ryze are banned away too. Steve didn't have the greatest scoreline on that yesterday, but admittedly, he had a lot of attention from Dexter.
That's true. I mean, when you play a Ryze in the top lane, you will get ganked. I mean, that's how it is. You will always get
repeatedly
focused. And they did. They got a few kills on him. ROCCAT banning away the second jungler. loulex is mainly playing, so he's going to have to find something new, unless he wants to go back to Evelynn, even though he hasn't played that for multiple weeks. Normally, when you face H2K, you're not banning out the jungler. You're banning out the AD carry. Sivir, Kalista, 2 of the most banned champions against Hjarnan, of course, or you're banning out KaSing and his Thresh very often.
This makes me think now that the Nidalee ban comes through that we will probably be seeing a very quickly picked up AD carry. However, there is everything left on the table. No Sivir ban, no Kalista ban. They've been banning Varus versus Nukeduck, but it is looking like we are going to see the Kalista as it's locked in for ROCCAT, their preference.
So rarely we see Kalista being open, and whenever she is, we almost always see her getting first pick. The same for ROCCAT. They trust a lot in MrRallez. He has played it before and done really well. The one game it was only where it was open, but he's an AD carrier. ROCCAT has been very vocal about how they trust in him, his positioning. They think that as soon as he gets out of the laning phase into team fights, he can really shine. And for him, getting Kalista should also secure a fantastic laning phase.
Certainly should, and we'll have to see what H2K decide to answer with it. No need to necessarily take the Sivir away now, since it's pretty much already going to be going to them by way of that Kalista. The Varus is still up if Nukeduck wanted to take it, so H2K may think about taking that away. However, doesn't necessarily strike me as something they'll want to do. Jayce is also
seeing as Jayce is open as well, but you gotta consider jungle pick here for loulex. Just as we talk about it, he hovers over and locks in the Olaf as well, because with 2 bans against him, either ROCCAT had in mind a third pick that could maybe take away from him. In this case here, he's just going in the first rotation, saying, I need a strong pick and still somewhat of a comfort pick, we must assume, from scrims.
Hoping to channel his inner reign over. We'll have to see how it goes. We have seen Olaf only really come out from the Fnatic jungler, and H2K wading into new territory here. You've got to be able to deepen your champion pool, though, going forward into playoffs, and what better time to do it than now to practice for that. Let's see what ROCCAT answer with. There is still a number of power picks up. That Varus is available if Nukeduck wants to take it.
You can also go for the Alistar with your Kalista here. Kalista Alistar lane we've seen very often. So strong in team fights and also in terms of diving these enemy dual lanes here. We obviously haven't seen anything from H2K. We should expect it to be a Thresh pick for KaSing, unless he can get his hand on the Alistar, but looks like ROCCAT is going to take it away.
Yeah, and the Lee Sin too, most likely. This is no surprise for Jankos. With a lot of jungle bans away, he goes back on an old comfort pick. They send it back to H2K side.
And this is something we have seen from ROCCAT before, where they target out the tier 1 junglers because Jankos is such a good Lee Sin player. They feel like that's a good enough pick for them. They can try and take it away from the other side, and obviously loulex didn't take anything away from Jankos, so he's going to be more than happy. It's a very skirmish focused from ROCCAT here. Decent pick potential coming in, where H2K is already building more towards the big team fight, especially with the Rumble pick in the top lane.
Yeah, and ROCCAT especially will have a strong and importantly very safe bottom lane already between that Kalista and Thresh, the yo-yo combination. So H2K really no sense for them to try to pick up a extremely lane dominant pick.
Should be
Sivir makes perfect sense here, because you just want to start running at the enemy team. The Annie also, there's your team fight right there.
And also because you had the Olaf pick early, you knew that you could always take Sivir in the next rotation. Now that Kalista has been locked in for ROCCAT, we know these two guys synergize so well together. Speed up that Olaf here. He often goes for Righteous Glory, and nothing is going to stop him from reaching your back line. So H2K building very team fight focused and very all in. Olaf is a champion who prefers to only go one way. That's forward. He got to catch that axe and keep throwing it. He doesn't really want to run back.
With that now, H2K, the one thing that they're really lacking from this whole have Olaf run in, start the fight, just continue to run at the enemy team, is a shield, really. And I feel like this can be filled out easily with a Lulu. That's been left open. Ryu, we've known him to play it. You think ROCCAT maybe is expecting that?
No, I think ROCCAT is looking more at a Jayce pick from Ryu, seeing as H2K is already lined up with magic damage from support, magic damage from your top laner, the Rumble, and at the same time, Jayce with his gate also works so extremely well in these high mobility compositions where you have the likes of an Olaf. So I think H2K is looking towards that Jayce pick, and if ROCCAT doesn't respond with any sort of hard engage, that Jayce is going to be almost impossible to deal with. So by them taking the Maokai, having potentially a Thresh thrown in, and also Lee Sin, they might feel they have enough to deal with a Jayce. So H2K, I mean, I still think Jayce is a fantastic pick here.
Yeah, and the Viktor now for Nukeduck. I suppose when you've got this heavy amount of AD, you definitely want to balance it out. They chose to go with the Maokai to add that beefy frontline as well as a later game strong tank and something that can deal toe-to-toe with Odoamne, but he did lock them into necessarily needing AP mid, so they didn't have Varus or Jayce as an option for themselves.
Yeah, and also Viktor is just a safe pick. And you take the Viktor if you know there's a last pick from the other team and you don't really want to give anything away. He works in a lot of good compositions because of the fact he has wave clear, he has great scaling into the late game, he has a decent laning phase. So Viktor is just an overall safe pick. However, I don't think he performs that well against poke. So in this case, the Jayce, but the rest of H2K is run at, you know, ROCCAT. That's where Viktor can shine. He can zone really well with his stun, his ulti as well, with a mass amount of AoE you have to respect. So there is some control there from ROCCAT, but I really, really, really like H2K's composition here. I love the Jayce pick in the end. We talked about how strong it is with these mobility compositions. It adds in an element of poke for them, so have good siege, even with the Sivir. Fast pushing abilities, explosive team fights. I like what they've been building.
Yeah, and they have a solid balance of damage too, as you were mentioning earlier. Really do like it myself. It's going to be a tough game for ROCCAT to really get ahead early. The onus will, I feel, be on them, especially Jankos. He's been, you know, relied on fairly heavily throughout this split for ROCCAT.
True.
And I feel like that's not going to change anytime soon.
He should be able to have more impact than loulex in the early game on this Lee Sin here for Jankos. But the rest of the comp again for ROCCAT, it's a bit of everything. There's some skirmish, but there's a fairly strong team fight because you're Maokai Viktor as well. We have to see how they can play it out.
We'll definitely have to see indeed. So now, with all of that, the lineup's locked. Why don't you guys let us know on Twitter who you think is going to come out victorious? Hashtag ROC win or hashtag H2K win, as we're getting ready to start off day number 2 of week number 7 here in Europe. The LCS, the crowd is getting hyped, and the teams are loading onto the Rift.
All right, let's see what we get from both teams. Cleanse for Nukeduck, no surprise when you're facing an Annie. It's almost suicide not running it, especially with all the other fantastic champions H2K have to get onto Nukeduck. He's going to have a tough game.
Yeah, if they don't accurately protect him.
He really needs to position so well in the back line, otherwise H2K will get him every single time. But the rest of the composition for them, we mentioned how they were most likely expecting the Jayce. So like, okay, we need an element of engage. Maokai top lane with the Righteous Glory. Still pre-nerfed here on 512, which we're playing on. So it is still a strong pick. However, it can get shut down fairly effectively. Don't think that's going to be too big of a problem though for Steve, seeing as he has this Lee Sin. And Jankos is putting more and more attention into the top lane, because they trust in Steve now also to be a bit of a carry in that lane.
He can do, as long as he's not harassed too heavily, of course, on the Maokai as well. We've seen Maokai Rumble matchups. You know, this was something that just some months ago was pretty much the gold standard of matchups, and now it will be no different unless we decide to opt for a lane swap. We'll have to see as H2K throws down the scouting wards and ROCCAT does the same. Who wants to trade out here, though? Or maybe just get a catch.
Aggressive start here from Odoamne with his starting item. We have seen Dorn's shield quite often. Instead, he wants to really rush this Haunting guys, get that early flat penetration against the Maokai pick. So aggressive start for him. Will be H2K swapping to the top lane. You are against a Kalista Thresh lane. It's one of the hardest dual lanes to face. ROCCAT is even just saying we've warded up everything. We haven't spotted anyone move down, so we can start your Grump and at least do a little bit of counter jungling. And also, the reason they're starting here is to spot if by any chance H2K were moving in to start on the weak side with their own jungle on top lane. They could stop them at the same time.
Looks like we might be in for a good old 4v0 if both teams realize that. And speaking of matchups, we're going to go back all the way to week number 1 when these two met last time. It was ROCCAT having a very, very rough start to their split. H2K as dominant as ever, and yeah, you can see that in the number differentials. It was, dare we say, a stomp.
Yeah, 2 towers for ROCCAT and 1 dragon. That's about it. Everything else belonged to H2K in that game. Super, super one-sided, but it was back in week 1. Different patch, it's been a while.
Different teams, really. I mean, the mentality's changed so much since then.
Yeah, I mean, ROCCAT, the funny thing is, ROCCAT keeps, you know, having that one great game every week, and you're like, oh, okay, ROCCAT look pretty strong. Are they getting better now? Are they going to move up the standings? And then the next day, they fall flat on their face. And you're like, okay, maybe it's back to square one?
Or square 0.5, not to see. H2K, though, they're the ones that are really starting off this fast tower push, and it's been almost more of a freeze, a very slow push in from ROCCAT's side. So you feel like they are going off a much slower start, really. Yeah,
H2K is running through what I will now call the standard swap, where you send your top lane up to fight with the dual lane, or to kill the tower with the dual lane while you jungle. He just stays in the jungle. He's nearby in case you need him, but he's just power farming because Odoamne then can take down this tower. Notice how H2K as well are letting him just get it in the very end. And he stays in the lane. He bounces the wave and he stays. So now he's going to get some extra farm, while Steve is being sacrificed a little bit by his own team, because it's Jankos clearing this tower. So Steve has to walk alone up to the lane. If he doesn't get up there fast, Odoamne might get quite a CS and experience lead, and it can be super difficult for Steve then to get back in the lane.
Right, you know, you normally consider this an even matchup for champions, but when this kind of thing happens, when one team neglects the top and the other team doesn't, also importantly, when one team has Odoamne, you cannot afford to get behind against somebody who is this strong on this champion. In a team fighting oriented composition, this is basically going to turn it into a 5v4 if they let it happen.
Yeah, what we have to look at now is that if Odoamne decides to push out the top lane, there's the potential of a tower dive in the bottom lane. With his teleport, you have a Sivir pushing in and an Annie. Notice the movement from loulex. He's going down as well. So once this wave is pushed in, if Steve is trying to freeze it, you just push in the bottom lane, you dive him, teleport down, jungle as well, 4v2. RALLEZ won't be able to do anything, he's going to die. And that's how H2K can try and snowball it. So I want to see what Steve is doing in the top lane as well. You can already see loulex is here now. Is teleport coming out for Odoamne? They're setting up for this dive.
They are indeed. Will RALLEZ realize that there's the teleport after the ward came out? A teleport coming in from Steve, but RALLEZ is already going down. That's first blood. Steve committed to it. He looks for KaSing, but doesn't find him. Vander comes too late. Odo is caught under the tower. Vander gets revenge.
Very good response from ROCCAT, but we could see the play here from H2K. Because ROCCAT didn't leave Steve in the bottom lane after the tower went down, he had to walk top lane. Odoamne had control of the wave, could recall, and then time this dive here very effectively. It might not be over yet, Pyro.
Yeah, we had that flash, and in comes Jankos now. loulex is the one who gets hooked. They throw in the sapling, flash away from loulex, going for him. Jankos wants to finish him off. He's going low, but he gets the kill. Flashes, takes the lantern, the juke. Still alive. Shock blast intercepted by Vander. Steve and
nice play.
Hanging out. Good play. Amazingly played to save it.
Vander setting up everything. Oh, one more!
He's got KaSing in range. He lives though, just barely.
Vander is on fire. He's the guy coming back here, defending the tower, gets a kill. Then he flashes forward, catches another one. Even flays Rio away so he couldn't finish his attack in the hammer form. And in the end, 2 kills for ROCCAT. This was H2K who set up everything, but ROCCAT was reading it. They're saying, we're ready. Steve teleported down instantly as well as the dive happened.
I don't know what Vander was eating for breakfast today, but ROCCAT need to stock more of that in the house. As it stands 2-1 to start this one off. Explosive when you consider how it looks like it was just going to be a routine 4v0 to start things off. Not so in this game.
A lot of things have changed here. Teams, once you get a predictable or a standard lane swap, teams start finding, okay, how can we counter it a little bit? Okay, by first of all taking out jungler, keep him in the jungle to farm and not kill the tower. He's going to get an advantage over the enemy jungler. That's one way you can do it. Also, then you push down this lane and you start up this dive in the other lane, obviously in the bot lane in this case, with teleport from the top lane. And that's how you try and snowball some of these swaps here. But you can see both teams were ready for it. I didn't see where Odoamne used his flash. Clearly did not use the flash away. Vander and Jankos fighting again though.
Yeah, checked into loulex, but loulex was going pretty low himself. Ryu comes around the side, so does Nukeduck. Chaos Storm is on. Ryu, he's only got one way to run. Jankos is stunned, but there is going to connect the Sonic Wave. Not going to be able to follow through on the Resonating Strike, and Odoamne will barbecue him up for a kill.
A lot of fights here early on. Both supports were roaming with their junglers. They find each other. Quick fight, mid laners join, and then Odoamne is moving down. And decent start for him despite dying in that tower dive. He got 2 kills, he's been getting free farm in the lane. You can see how ROCCAT now realized, okay, the wave is pushing back to Odoamne, because once Steve teleported down to the bottom lane, he'd already started pushing the wave up top, so there was a lot of minions going to Odoamne. Steve would have been pretty far behind, so now they kept him in the bottom lane. Both teams realizing we gotta make sure these top laners get back into the game, despite being in a lane swap, even though it was such a short one. And that's where we see how teams are also adapting, but ROCCAT has fallen slightly behind in farm when it comes to AD carry and top lane. Only Nukeduck is doing really well.
Yeah, for H2K, that difference in the top lanes is really those couple of kills. Odoamne, he's sitting on 500 more than his lane opponent, so Steve has definitely got some work to do. He's just back to base to go ahead and finish off his Catalyst, the Protector, but this could be a long ride for him. Meanwhile, back to mid, Ryu and Nukeduck continue to duke it out, but that farm advantage definitely for Nukeduck, who's been able to catch Ryu out when the two of them have roamed into that river. Vander really starting off a lot of the aggression by just positioning himself in front of everything.
H2K is setting up for a very, well, not a very early, but an early dragon for themselves. You have the AD carry stuck in the top lane, he's not going to do anything, or instead, just want to 4v0 this tower. Once again, what they can do is just bounce the wave in, give it to Odoamne so he gets the lane pushed down, or they can just take down the tower and then go dragon after, while Steve is stuck at his tier 2 tower defending these waves, and the AD carry is stuck up in the top lane. So ROCCAT now has to make a quick decision. Do you want to trade this top tower? Can Steve as well stay alive in the bottom lane? As long as he doesn't go aggressive, he should be okay. But look at H2K, they're moving around for potential dive. Steve needs to back away.
Yeah, he can't afford to defend this even with the shield on him. Now it's just out of range. If he tries to go in, throws a couple saplings. KaSing's got the stun. He's going to go forward, try to make them back off the tower, close to half the health. Now that the mini wave is depleted, and now H2K will ping out for the Baron, or Dragon.
Whole setup again for them is pre-planned. You're saying, okay, we push it in. It's just a Maokai. He's not going to do anything. 4 people. We're going to take first tower. In case ROCCAT does not send someone back down to defend, in this case, Vander recall, we can push in a second tower. Otherwise, we just go Dragon. And in the end, they just trade towers, but they get that one Dragon for themselves. So it's a win-win situation for H2K. Basically, no matter what happened, unless they randomly died 4v1 to Steve.
Creating options for themselves is the mark of a top-tier team, and despite Vander's noble attempt to throw a hook in, lend a hand, H2K do secure Dragon #1, as you saw earlier, about 6 minutes ahead of schedule for them.
And that is obviously what happens if you swap your AD carry to the top lane. You give up that Dragon control on the bottom lane. H2K took advantage of it. So now 2 towers down for both teams. Very even in gold. And again, if you look at the farm, because Odoamne had to run all the way from top lane down to bottom lane, he's now given up quite some CS to Steve, who was just sitting there in the lane farming, but he should be able to catch up with this wave coming in towards him, and with the 2 early kills as well, you can't really complain.
Yeah, a lot of trading back and forth and attempts to outwit the opponent rather than doing a very slower start. One of the things we've accused ROCCAT of doing. But when you talk about H2K, we usually compare them to, you know, having a chess match, which sounds always so relaxing, like they're just carefully controlling the game. But no, sometimes when you play chess, you can make these trades, throw away a couple of pawns, and hope to grab yourself a queen or a bishop.
Yeah, flip the table if you lose.
Exactly. No matter what, it's always a good choice for H2K, and they're continuing to do that. Slight lead for them, or rather, very even for them. I guess the Dragon really making all the difference at the moment.
We can look at the 2 AD carries here, because despite Hjarnan being ahead in CS, if you look at the items, he's gone back to base. Fairly unlucky moments for him, because they were trying to, like, you know, speed up this lane swap. They're trying to set up that dive in the bottom lane. So first time he went back, double longsword for him. Either he can now go for Brutalizer into Ghostblade as his second item completed with that, or he can just build up one of them to potential lifesteal for himself. At the same time, he then went back another time, and then he got Pickaxe. And he got his boots upgrade. He never managed to go back at 1500 gold or 1550 to get that BF sword. RALEZ did time that. So effectively in terms of stats right now, RALEZ is doing more than fine, even though he is behind. But what H2K is doing so well is using the Sivir also with the early attack speed to just fast push waves over and over and over. And loulex is always nearby. It's like shattering the lane. No matter where they're pushing, he's around. And now to get another free tower.
Yeah, they get some more damage on MrRallez as well. So 2 members in there with loulex around the side on top of the Olaf insurance policy seems to be paying out. We're hitting the 12-minute mark in the game. H2K gotten a little bit ahead in the gold game. However, there is a tree in the bottom side still pushing the wave into Odoamne.
But what we have seen now, with every single play being made, it's H2K who's starting it. It's H2K saying, we want to be active on the map, we know where to go now, and ROCCAT is trying to react. They managed to TP in down the bottom lane, get a few kills for it. Then they traded a top tower, lost the dragon though. They're just getting slightly behind, and now this move on the top lane, no response for ROCCAT at all, because Jankos, for some reason, trying to set up a play the bottom lane. And that's not going to happen. Now he might die.
Yeah, he could be in some trouble as he gets stunned up. Vander tries to give him a hook to save his life. Not going to happen. Steve teleporting. Odoamne going to follow in. loulex and KaSing went down, and now the Fate's Call is out. Vander getting thrown. H2K stayed too long.
ROCCAT again, though. They're reacting to H2K making the plays. Steve joining in a little bit before Odoamne. Odoamne never really managed to do anything. ROCCAT shouldn't be any objective to gain. Hjarnan is defending this mid tower, but once again, teams are trading all the time. 2 teleports used, kill for each. ROCCAT is just slightly behind due to that top tower.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point you bring up, that they're the ones who aren't making the plays, but they're reacting, and more often than not, they're reacting well. Yes, they gave up Jankos, but they were able to find 2 kills on top of it. And really, what have they given up aside from a tower, a dragon, a couple of kills? They've got most of that back.
We're 30 minutes in. That's quite a lot. That's quite a lot you've been giving up, though, in that tower, and a dragon not really gained a whole lot. The fight is on. H2K making a catch onto Jankos, but we can see as well, Steve is just faster than Odoamne and teleporting in and joining the fight, and loulex is just caught way behind, so he couldn't really get out. And in the end, H2K flashing away, teleport's burned, still have that small advantage.
And ROCCAT, you know that typically when they've been behind at the 10-20 minute mark or so, they sometimes bodes well for them. So you know, maybe they're not too worried about this. Dragon is going to be up another minute and a half. Teams decide to have a brief moment of non-aggression, even though there's several H2K members down the bottom side looking to set up on this tower. It's only Steve once again. Vander coming around the side. Can Steve defend this though? For now, he might be able to.
He's got to hold it a little longer because Vander is coming. RALL moving in as well. So good defense here from Steve. H2K trying another push there. Really trying to utilize Ryu. Here in the mid game, obviously, he hasn't built up any cooldown reduction yet, but he has that Brutalizer, upgraded the tier, so he's going to be fairly strong already. And we keep seeing them just fast pushing in waves. They don't need to fight necessarily. If they can get a pick, they go for it. But otherwise, it's about pushing lanes, it's about pushing towers. And always trying to pull ROCCAT around the map and wait for ROCCAT then to make a mistake where they invest maybe 2 or 3 guys to defend one tower, and then they might lose something elsewhere on the map. As you can see, H2K always trying to spread out every single side lane and every single minion wave. It's going to push for them. If not, they just go back and reset the whole thing and try it again.
Remember though, when you're playing these games waiting for people to make mistakes, what is on the line too? ROCCAT, they have such a tough schedule ahead of them to try and make the playoffs and even avoid the relegation zone. But for H2K, they're 1 win away from securing their trip to the playoffs right now. And you've got to think, what weighs heavily on one team's mind? I think ROCCAT's definitely the ones with more to think about.
Yeah, that's for sure. H2K obviously trying to keep even with Origin. Oh, Odoamne's going in.
There's a big equalizer, throws down the Zhonya's as the Chaos Storm is on, but he gets kicked and dies right in the middle of it. Sivir nowhere to be found as H2K scramble to move forward. ROCCAT were the ones taking advantage of that situation.
Yeah, strange engage from H2K. Hjarnan was running from the bottom lane, loulex was running from the jungle. They weren't even close to the mid lane, and Odoamne just dives in on his own. Remember, H2K, they're not really running with any peel, they're not running any sort of heavy disengage. So once you are going in, engaging into the fight, you're all inning. Like, you're not planning on getting back out. Odoamne, I don't know, maybe he was used to having a Thresh lantern saving him. In this case, Vander stole that one away in Champs League.
Not this time, but H2K will secure the Dragon, narrowly defend their mid turret. So despite the kill, ROCCAT don't get anything else from it.
Might be able to push in a mid tower though. They're setting up another fight. Vander!
Oh, the hook won't connect. KaSing though, lasering down as Nukeduck looks to finish him off. They will just let that one go over to MrRallez. Meanwhile, Steve twisted advances onto Ryu. There's the death laser. Ryu goes to the skies and goes back to Fountain as Jankos puts a foot in his face.
ROCCAT is really punishing H2K for some sloppy plays. First they engage from Odoamne, now they stay really far up the mid lane, despite there's this Fate's Call from Kalista to start a fight. don't respect it. Everyone else from H2K was split out. One member at top lane, 2 members in the bottom lane. More kills for ROCCAT. Tower as well. Suddenly really speeding up the game. And it's all because they see openings to punish H2K.
They are seeing those openings, and more importantly, they're taking them. They may be 2 dragons down at this point, Deficio, but they're just about even in every other mark and ahead in the gold game.
Yeah, you're going to even out those dragons super easy. It doesn't matter if you gave up 2 or 3, as long as you can then fight for the next one. If you get a big goal lead instead, because you're trading it for object or for towers and kills, you should hit the point where you're stronger anyway. You take that dragon fight, you stop them from reaching number 5, and you are more than fine.
Yeah, the early ones don't mean as much, and this is why we've seen teams not necessarily getting them. We've seen these high averages, and this time it worked out for H2K to take them because there really wasn't any answer from ROCCAT, but they haven't needed to. And you can see that they're still confident enough to be able to make plays on H2K. For now, they are in the lead.
Yeah, so well played from ROCCAT, honestly. Waiting out the mistakes of H2K. Early game, fell slightly behind. Now you're starting to see items come in here. MrRallez should be sitting on quite a lot of gold. He's been having that BT for a while now. Nukeduck as well. He's managed to upgrade his item. He's building towards an hourglass by the looks of it. And we know Viktor's scaling is fantastic. You always have to respect the damage from the Viktor. And that means for H2K, if they keep taking these sloppy fights, ROCCAT is only going to get stronger and stronger. They have plenty of damage to deal with you.
This is true. Between the Viktor and the Kalista, it could get pretty hairy for them. But remember, there's some solid scaling on H2K's side, too. Now, H2K looking at trading towers here as they send 3 bottom. They take it out, but up in the top, there's a party of ROCCAT members unopposed at the moment as Odoamne, perhaps learning his lesson, is backed off. This is going to be a tier 2 trade.
Look at the mid lane now, though. Nukeduck has to be so careful because there's a chance of H2K diving him. They were faster killing that tower, and they instantly just stone him away. So they will take 2 towers. Whenever H2K are making plays around the map for the towers, they seem to just be 1 step ahead of ROCCAT. Bot lane was already low, and then you can take that easy move in to a lane that was already pushed. That was the mid lane in this case. And Nukeduck couldn't defend it. He couldn't stay around. He would have been killed by 4 members.
2 for 1 tower trade for H2K, and the proactivity pays off this time. Hitting 20 minutes on the clock. Still a lead for ROCCAT, but it's not as wide as it was a few moments ago. Baron will hit the board in just a few seconds, but it should be quite a while before these teams start eyeballing that particular objective, especially if you're ROCCAT.
You're right. Yamato Cannon on the desk after they lost yesterday. I was like, yeah, Baron, not our friend. Not our friend. Two different attempts at Baron yesterday. Both of them didn't work out. Ended up giving a lot of kills over to Elements. It was one of the reasons they lost that mid-game lead they built up. This game here, smaller lead compared to what they had against Elements.
The way they're getting it, too, is very different. This has been H2K making plays, ROCCAT reacting to those plays quite well, getting 2 kills where they've only given up 1, etc., etc., but it's less about them getting ahead in the early game. They're not necessarily preparing for this crazy late game that they tend to try for, even if unsuccessfully, but they do have strong scaling this time around, so it's not a liability either.
Definitely a very strong scaling. I mean, both teams have fairly good scaling. If you look at it, Olaf is obviously gonna outduel at least in the late game very, very easily. Jayce scales up fantastic. Sivir will always offer that great utility as well in the late game. At the same time, though, for ROCCAT, you have this massive tank in Vander. You have, of course, just mentioned the Viktor scaling. Nukeduck as well decided to just get the death cap. He had enough gold for it, clearly. Delaying a bit the defensive items. He can go Void Staff with the tome he has left as well. And he's getting there. I mean, he's at the point now, if H2K overextends, he can almost one combo a target like Rio. I think, almost. He will be able to take Rio down.
Yeah, and this is why you've got to think that the late game might be more, much more dangerous than it is at the moment, since the death timers are still lower. We're only 21 minutes in. And even though they've got this Sivir composition with the siege from Ryu, H2K may not necessarily want to just run at the enemy team because there's always that risk. Counter engage has been good so far from ROCCAT.
That's true. I mean, again, this Viktor pick, we talk about how it was picked as a blind pick. That's why people like to take Viktor in, because he's so safe. Again, he does well in almost every lane matchup. And also, against these engage compositions, as long as there's not insane hard engage to just lock him down and blow him up instantly, he's great. He offers a lot of zone control, he has great burst, and because you can run cleanse, you don't need an offensive summoner you can deal with the likes of Annie. You can deal with this one hard engage composition or champion. Because if you get stunned, you cleanse, you can flash out, and or at least cleanse and then blow your entire combo. And you will deal a lot of damage in the fights.
Burst on both sides, but yeah, it's really Nukeduck that's been taking it to Ryu right now, and Dragon getting started off by H2K, but there's a lot of ROCCAT members sitting here. They could contest this one. The hook.
Steve is in base here.
Gonna connect. Steve sitting to see if he wants to send his teleport in. I think they're just gonna give this one up, however. Third Dragon H2K.
I really would like to see Maokai players get very early home guards. I think that's one of the strongest things about him, especially in the current meta, where you rely so much on his hard engage, and it allows you to set up fights very effectively. Having him diving into the backline, there's no upgraded boots for Steve, so he's putting a lot of value in just getting pure defensive stats, and that's gonna really hurt his teleport plays and his playmaking ability.
Yeah, for now, really only able to utilize the Righteous Glory to get the jump on the enemy team. We'll have to see if that changes, if he decides to prioritize that right now. Still working towards finishing off a number of items, it looks like.
Yeah. Frozen Heart for him. Very, very standard.
Eventually,
obviously.
Spirit Visage for Odoamne and KaSing, yeah. But it's going to be a little while before the tree does get a bark that is far worse than his bite. Or is it the other way around?
It's Steve.
It is.
That's all that matters. Good old Steve. Fantastic to join the LCS and from week 1. Everyone is just yelling your name.
Yeah.
Everyone. Even though he had such a bad start to the LCS.
He did get focused quite a lot, not just by the audience,
he got
but
so
by
capped.
every team.
Oh man, I remember his first game, he played Hecarim. No flash, of course, and I think he just got ganked like 5 times in the early game, and he did absolutely nothing. But he's been stepping up his game, getting more used to the stage, and also teams don't put the same focus on poor little Steve as we saw in the start, because he's not even playing Hecarim anymore. Then again, he played Ryze yesterday and got camped, so I guess I'm lying to everyone.
He has some variety at the point, I think, Deficio, but let's to see if it is going to be enough. Jankos forward hops over the side. Big shock blast hits Nukeduck in the face, but they're able to clear the waves away. H2K continuing to try and chip away at this mid tower, but the defense still holds for now.
We see the same though for H2K. It's focus on pushing lanes, pushing down towers. Take the dragon every time it spawns. They haven't gone for any risky fights since they messed up in the mid lane and gave ROCCAT that slight goal lead. They've been playing it very safe. They know they can play for 5 dragons. They know they can keep just pushing in towers and have wards on the flanks. Steve is not really a threat with these teleports. We mentioned before, man, no home guards for him. I think that's such a massive mistake, because it's a guaranteed way of getting someone like Ryu or even Hjarnan in these fights here for H2K, or for ROCCAT. And it's going to be so important for them. They lock down one of these carries and zone them out with your tank. At this point, because we're still in the mid game, Maokai can do a lot of damage as well to one of these squishy targets. So, not a fan of the lack of home guards.
I think H2K really able to play around this as well, pushing a wave out top after they'd been pushing a bit mid, controlling the waves very effectively, and they're perfectly happy with ROCCAT not making too many moves here, as it lets them throw their weight around all over the map. 3 Dragons to 0, still that score. They're getting closer and closer to Aspect if this game does drag on. And ROCCAT have yet to try and stop them, really.
You might just see ROCCAT say, no, we want 3 items on Nukeduck, then we contest the next rank. This is what we mentioned as well, how you can give up the first few dragons as long as you gain something else on the map. ROCCAT has not been able to really trade anything for dragons, though. They've been giving them up fairly, honestly, for free to H2K almost every single time. So they have to be able to contest the next one. And if they lose that fight, that's where you get into trouble, and that's where you get punished for obviously not getting these dragons in the early game. If you then lose the important fight and give H2K number 5, even number 4, then the potential number 5 after.
Hjarnan, a little bit of damage. Jankos on the chase, backs away. The shock blast covers the escape. Still a lot of heavy attention being paid to this mid, which is going to mean Odoamne unabated. On the bottom side, he has his teleport up if he needs to use it. There's nothing to fight over just yet, just some towers and a few wards in the middle to make sure every team has an idea of what's going on. H2K continuing to push without overcommitting to this tower, learning the lessons of the past.
Really playing it so safe. Jankos might look.
Goes for loulex.
Guy you want.
Not yet. Steve's going to jump on him. Can't be disabled, though. He's in Ragnarok. And that will mean they will have to back away. One ultimate burned from the jungler of H2K.
Yeah. Jankos trying to jump onto loulex and then see if you could move further and kick back either Ryu or Hjarnan, but everyone quickly disengaged from H2K, and this is also what you can do when you run Sivir, when you run Jayce. You have a lot of mobility to use in case you need it. Obviously no ulti for loulex is a big deal in a potential fight, but we see the same. ROCCAT are sitting defending towers. They don't have any control on the map. If you look at the warding, H2K put up defensive pink wards near the objectives they're setting up for, Dragon and the Baron. And then they have wards on the flanks to see if ROCCAT is moving in. So there's very few ways for ROCCAT to engage. They're most likely relying on pulling in...
Oh, like that.
Throwing in Vander, yeah. Let him land a hook or then throw him in with the Kalista. They really start to fight. They just give this one up here. They're not really able to do anything. Just lack of potential engages from Steve as well.
No defense and an extended siege pays off for H2K. They grab themselves their 6th tower of the game. On the other hand, ROCCAT have been able to push a few sideways back. They built one up in the top side, which means Odoamne is going to have to go and defend and clear that one back out. But still, ROCCAT, as you said before, they're not the ones making the proactive plays. Yes, they can push it sideways, but what are they doing with it? So far, nothing.
Oh yeah, you can't do anything if you're pushed all the way down to your own base. That wave is just free farm for Odoamne. It's basically saying, okay, we can keep pushing for another 30 seconds, then I'm going to go catch this massive wave. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to go down and be ready to fight for the next dragon. ROCCAT is now finally moving in, trying to set up a bit of vision before it even spawns, but it's still way too late because they've just been pushed back. They haven't been able to do anything. Steve, please, go back in base, sit with your home guards, and set up an engage where you get to the back line of H2K, otherwise they can just keep kiting around. Just land a poke from Ryu as well.
And ROCCAT, they had pretty much everything here, everyone here, to clear out the Skull of Crab, to clear out the vision. They immediately give it up the moment H2K shows 3 members. And now, complete control once again for H2K. They don't need to take the dragon just yet. ROCCAT are moving mid, but they can't fully commit to this.
No, basically what ROCCAT is doing is, by them pushing in the mid lane, they force H2K to step away from the dragon and be ready to defend that mid lane. So ROCCAT can't just push in for a tower. That's what you do when you want to force people out of the river, if you've already lost control of it. But you can see how H2K only sent in a few members and then the rest stayed around. So they still have good warding placed. Look for Ryu and the poke he can land. And let's see how ROCCAT can start a fight. I mean, we're looking at a hook, we're looking at flash engage, maybe from Steve, or if Jankos can go in and kick someone back. Otherwise, this poke is just going to continue. They're going to push the mid lane again. That's the only lane they're pushing at the moment, trying to force H2K. You can see how Ryu is always moving in around it. Can he clear the wave and then step back? But ROCCAT is simply not able to do anything in terms of starting the fight unless H2K mispositions.
So we have the extended dragon dance, and it goes far outside of the range of the dragon itself. ROCCAT, even though they're grouped up here, they can't afford to get involved. There's the shock blast damage, there's the threat of the Annie, Sivir on the hunt, every ultimate is available, every member is here, and they're not pulling the trigger.
No, and you cannot fight in a choke point either against a Rumble. So very difficult for ROCCAT in how they want to set up the fight. Also the fact that the 2 side lanes are pushing for H2K, so they're starting it now. There's Steve!
Yep, his spell shielded. There goes the equalizer. loulex gets pushed back in, but Steve is the one on the front line, and he's burning away. KaSing looking for a Vander now. They're doing way too much damage as Jankos goes down. Odoamne targeted out, but he throws on the Zanya's Hourglass. Might be enough to get away. Shield is up. They are going to catch MrRallez. Stunned up. He's going to get the Lantern to safety, but Jankos and Odoamne all went down in the carnage. Dragon number 4, however, will be secured by H2K.
Yeah, ROCCAT simply not doing themselves any favors in how they want to start the fight. It was too easy to predict. You start a flash engage, Hjarnan just popped his spell shield and he walked out. He didn't manage to connect anything else from ROCCAT. They're simply not able to properly start the fight. And now that they have given up so many dragons, H2K can start forcing. Look at the spell shield from Hjarnan. Beautiful reaction. He also just predicting the engage. loulex is stuck in the pit. He stays back here to get the first kill. Odoamne will go down though in the very end of the fight because Nukeduck and MrRallez are left untouched. The fact, or due to the fact that H2K was kiting back, they were not the ones hard engaging this time. After securing their 1 kill, well, yeah, it's a 1-1, but you lose a dragon. It's really been the story of the game. Now ROCCAT is trying to trade even, and then they lose something else.
So after all of that, we sit at 31.5 minutes into the game. The gold is still as close as it ever was between these two, but this is the big difference here. 4 dragons to none, 6 towers to 2. Finally, however, Steve learned the lesson.
Yeah, home guards completed.
Home guards are good.
Dragon fight too late.
Imagine if we had it before.
That could be what ROCCAT needs for the next one. H2K now can continue just to play it out super safe. You don't have to make any risky plays. You can start setting up a few baits around the Baron, but don't necessarily start it and risk ROCCAT getting a good fight against you. Instead, play around Ryu's poke over and over and over, and then wait for number 5 as well in terms of dragons. ROCCAT, though, moving in towards his tier 2. H2K is slightly out of position. KaSing trying to pose a little bit of a threat by just walking in, looking confident.
Gotta avoid those shock blasts, though. Ryu just narrowly clips MrRallez, and you can see the damage he's starting to do as he is stacking himself up. Hadn't had the easiest lane phase, but he's still playing Jayce. You have to respect that. H2K were able to defend for now.
For now, though, ROCCAT will be able to get more damage on the tower.
Might finish it.
H2K need Hjarnan here to have great, fast wave clear. Ryu needs to like position himself on the side of the minions to really shock blast them. Can be fairly difficult. So Hjarnan was the guy they were waiting for. Defend it for now. Expecting H2K to look for a fight, though. If ROCCAT stays around, there's no reason not to. They're
gonna go for it. They catch MrRallez and they blow him up. Hjarnan with the killing spree as loulex in the front with the Ragnarok on. Turns tail and runs around, flashing over the wall to bait Jankos and Steve. They hit and run and take down the AD carry.
The camera could barely follow. Move down, pop Sivir ulti. Instantly. You just have to engage Righteous Glory as well.
Steve had to teleport for that too. He was bot side, pushing tower. That's a teleport gain.
This is what H2K wants to do with their composition. Haven't gotten to see it too often in this game. The last dragon fight, they were forced to disengage and kite back, but this is what they can do. MrRallez, he's gonna need a QSS very soon.
He can't hop backwards fast enough. Odoamne tangles with the Grom. He should be able to push back Steve quite easily. So H2K doing what they need to now, get themselves just slowly, ever so much ahead, and catch ROCCAT members out with the superior mobility of their composition.
We saw H2K yesterday against Fnatic. Get a big lead in the early game. Then honestly, almost play cocky in the way. They were just invading into the jungle. They're not respecting the pick potential of Fnatic. They're not respecting the 5-on-5 the 5-on-5 team fight with the big power spike of Jayce Corki that Fnatic had, and they got caught out. Lost the lead, they had lost the game. This one here had a few misplays. If we go 15 minutes back into this game here, but then you're just missing. Okay, no more playing around. Now we're super safe, and everything ever since has been fully controlled by H2K. This ROCCAT trying to be, you know, a little bit active, but they're not very good at it. They're always trying to rely on H2K making a play, but if it's a flash and it tippers, what's the counter play really for ROCCAT? You can never set up a teleport then with your tank.
Yeah, there's just not enough time to be able to do it. The cast animation alone takes too long. And H2K, you know, they're learning the lessons, not just from yesterday, but from the few mistakes they have made throughout this split. And against a team like ROCCAT, you think in theory that's going to be enough to take home this victory, but it still looks even on paper, with the exception of those dragons. ROCCAT are still making moves. As you said, they've not all been successful, but they haven't rolled over and given up.
No. And now they need to set up for this dragon. However, massive lack of ping wards in my opinion. You're setting up for the crucial fight that might determine the entire game. At the moment, you have one ping ward on the map. You're still sitting on a health potion on your jungler at this point here. You're sitting on Doran's ring, Doran's blade. Not very effective item 35 minutes in, and you're gonna need that if you want to set up a proper fight where you don't want to risk H2K just getting a Tippers engage or Ryu sitting there landing poke. You don't really have any chance of dodging and you lose the fight and lose the dragon. ROCCAT should have recalled like 1.5 minutes ago. Bought the items needed for it, bought the ping wards, moved over to this dragon and start setting it up. Because right now H2K can even just take it slow because they might just be able to take a Baron. If ROCCAT is fully investing everything onto one thing, you just go and take the Baron if you're H2K. And there's no TP for Steve. It was used before on nothing. 3 ping wards now for H2K. They're setting up for it. I'm not sure how ROCCAT is going to fight this one. Flash engage from Steve is going to be needed.
He has to immediately go and move towards the dragon side. He has to give up on farming the top wave as it was pushing in. You've got Hjarnan pushing on the bottom side. He can rejoin his team quite easily if he needs to. And H2K, they're this close to securing dragon number 5. It's almost been uncontested this game, with the exception of that one fight that went awry for ROCCAT. It was a 1-for-1, but the dragon was given up. ROCCAT don't have control of this river. They need to act fast.
Started the dragon already here. ROCCAT is going in.
Hook onto loulex. Is that the one you want, though? Equalizer's down.
Jankos
They're going to steal it. Jankos manages to stop Aspect. Can they win the fight, though? loulex going down, and Odoamne might be getting out. KaSing getting chucked, but it's RALEZ who goes down. Jankos, RALEZ both down, but loulex had already melted. KaSing picks up a double kill there. They look for Steve. Can they find him? Shut down. Nukeduck manages to take out Hjarnan, and in comes Steve to his doom. Odoamne, one bit of sapling, double kill sapling. How about a touchdown there? Nukeduck and KaSing, the only ones on the map now.
Come on, KaSing, fight him. You have Tibbers. Be a man.
Tibbers is going in, but Nukeduck's going in faster. KaSing, there's lasers, there's a flash. Nukeduck gives up on this one.
Oh, he killed the Tibbers though. 50 gold. Worth it.
Oh, that was
what a close fight though. Jankos steals the dragon away. Let's see it again. Let's see everything again. Okay, so H2K, they start the dragon. They want to force ROCCAT to move down and start fighting them. First onto loulex, not the target you want for ROCCAT, but look at Jankos here. Steals it, and then the fight itself. Now H2K are not able to set up any engage. They have to kite back at first. Not necessarily what they want to do. So they can't get onto the kills before now. Beautiful setup. RALEZ goes down, but Nukeduck is still alive. We talked about the cleanse earlier, how important it is versus Annie. And him and Steve, of course, wait for the sapling. Wait for the sapling. Where is it? It's running. Look at that bad boy. Oh, it's another double sapling, man. Double sapling. What a setup.
The unseen sapling is the deadliest. Meanwhile, though, back to the game. The Baron is started as ROCCAT look to try and polish this one off. But visions of the past from yesterday, will it be taken away this time? It's not going to be enough people there, and the Baron goes down. Secured this time by ROCCAT. Can they finish the fight, however? Hjarnan, Sonic Wave, resonating strike, but Hjarnan makes the outplay before falling to the death laser. However, 3 for 1 for ROCCAT, and the Baron secured.
The last few fights, Nukeduck is staying alive in the back here. He didn't die yet. 7 kills, 6 assists for him. And he's dealing so much damage on this Viktor here. He's scaled into late game. No defensive items. He doesn't need that. And H2K is simply not able to lock him down. They tried to obviously stop the Baron as well. They've been losing now
quite a lot.
A lot of the base. I mean,
it's in shambles already.
Look at how many minions we have here. ROCCAT can just keep pushing.
There's no way to stop this. 4 seconds on loulex. They're going to go straight for the Nexus turrets. KaSing gets a 3-man Tibbers, but it doesn't matter at this point. Up comes loulex, but 1 Nexus turret is down. The second is sure to follow. loulex can only hope to get a kill or 2. The box is down to slow him down. They've cut the hook, focusing out the Nexus. They'll be able to do this. Not even 40 minutes, and ROCCAT have taken out H2K.
What a turnaround from ROCCAT here. 4 dragons to 0. It looked so bad. No teleport for Steve. How were they going to take this dragon? How are they going to win that fight? They engage, and Jankos, he steals away the dragon from loulex. Fight is on. Nukeduck with the cleanse. He stays alive in the backline. He deals so much damage. Sapling touchdown. We had everything here. Instant over to a Baron. Same deal. H2K is trying to stop the Baron itself instead of Nukeduck. Rio as well gets caught out in the middle of the fight, goes down, and ROCCAT instantly turned everything around. We talked about how both teams had some good scaling here on certain champions. Nukeduck was one of them. What a performance on this Viktor.
Right there in the name, man. This time, Team ROCCAT, they blasted off to the finish. Able to take a fantastic series of fights, and H2K, 1, 2, 3 mistakes. That's all it took.
And let's just talk about how important this win is, because we looked at the remaining schedule for these teams here fighting for the playoff spots and obviously fighting to avoid the promotion tournament down the bottom of the standings. ROCCAT had the toughest one. They had H2K, they had Origin, and they have Fnatic left.
And they'd already lost to Elements
yesterday. The 3 top teams. And then lose yesterday to Elements, one of the games they had to win. Well, I mean, if you can beat H2K, you're right back where you started, I guess. And not one of the games we expected them to win. One of the games they had to win, though, after losing to Elements yesterday, if they want to keep fighting for these playoff spots.
Yeah, and with that win, very important for them to move up the standings and keep themselves alive for the playoffs. I mean, how did that game end that way? It's just insane.
I completely written them off. When it came to that last dragon fight, I was like, okay, there's no TP. How are they going to start this one properly? The fact that H2K starts the dragon allows ROCCAT to engage, and we talked about it so many times. Look at the compositions here. Annie, you need to get into that backline with your Tibbers. You cannot lock down the target here. You have Sivir, you have the Olaf to charge in as well and take down one of these carries. Because H2K was starting Dragon and put focus on the Dragon itself, it allowed ROCCAT to engage onto them. Last time that happened as well, ROCCAT came out, or at least even. Nukeduck stays alive, deals so much damage. Steve is tanking for days. All they need was the fact that ROCCAT could not get to the back line. Then they can win the fights. Nukeduck with the build, Lich Bane 4 item, you know, no defensive items. We didn't even get to see how the Baron started. They just went straight to Baron. We got out of the replay. Baron was almost dead.
And they secured it.
And secured
this time.
H2K pile onto the Baron. They're like, tunnel on the Baron. Okay, we got to get the Baron down. Forget about the carry standing outside. Even lose the Smite War again.
And they lost 1-2 members immediately in the aftermath.
Yeah, like Ryu was standing in the middle of the fight, just dead. Instantly.
I mean, Hjarnan was able to finish off Jankos, like crazy outplaying him, but it didn't matter because then immediately Nukeduck just lasered him down. I mean, there was so much damage on that Viktor as well. Nukeduck was in the perfect position for almost every one of those fights, and they couldn't focus him because they were so prioritized on those objectives in the front line.
When we go back and rewatch this game here, we need to look at Ryu and his position in these fights. Because he went down very often, very early. Hjarnan stayed alive for a long time, but maybe the analyst desk will talk about it. Let's just toss it over to him, because we have talked enough.
Yeah, go ahead, take it away, guys. Explosive finish indeed.